Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Bhavna Chopra. I am tax partner with Premier Brains Accounting and Auditing. So in today's webinar, we'll be taking you through the very much hot topic these days, which is the economic substance regulations. So we will be giving you a background and then more of practical insights as to how to fill the economic substance regulations form. So there will be another speaker today. So Rishi Chawla, he's a partner with Premier Brains as well, and he will be taking you some of the form filling guidelines and other practical aspects. So in today's agenda, we will be covering first the background about ESR. So why these regulations were introduced in UAE, and then we'll take you through the notification deadline and the forms. And then we will be covering in detail some of the relevant activities defined in the ESR regulations, and then what it means by meeting the economic substance test, what are the penalties if the compliance is done, and then we will be taking the Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we please suggest everyone to submit their questions via the Q&A portal, which you can see on your screen. So please submit it through the Q&A portal, and then we will be taking towards the end of the session. So let's start with, the background of the economic substance regulations. So why these regulations were introduced in UAE? So basically, in May 2018, UAE joined the OECD framework. OECD is basically the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. So there are more than 130 countries which have joined the inclusive framework, and wherein the members of this inclusive framework have committed to meet the minimum standards of a project called BEPS. So BEPS means base erosion and profit shifting. So in the next slide, I'll explain more in detail what BEPS means. So basically, there was an assessment done by the European Union wherein earlier UAE was blacklisted as a non-cooperative jurisdiction. So in response to that, UAE introduced the economic substance regulations, and then subsequently in October 2019, UAE was removed from the blacklist. So this base erosion and profit shifting scheme, which was introduced by the OECD, it had basically 15 action points. And one of the action points was action point number 5, which was to curb the harmful tax practices, basically certain corporate structures by multinational corporations, wherein they were relocating their activities and shifting the profits from higher tax jurisdictions or to a low or no tax jurisdictions. So in response to that, OECD made these action points, and action 5 is for harmful tax practices. And in relation to the action 5, UAE introduced these economic substance regulations. So the main idea of this is to demonstrate the actual economic activity in UAE. So the main concern was about that too much profit and too little substance in no or low tax jurisdiction, and the objective is basically to curb harmful tax competition. So what BEPS is that, you're shifting the profits, base erosion and profit shifting. So base is basically your tax base, which gets eroded when you shift the profits to a no tax jurisdiction. And these kind of hurdles resulted in the launch of the BEPS project by the OECD, and these action points were designed to tackle this problem of shifting the profits. So as you know, there was a survey done by OECD in 2019 where it was estimated that the loss of revenue because of these tax planning structures done by some of the corporations. The higher tax jurisdictions were losing between 4 to 10% of the global income tax because of it. So this is an important step done to curb these harmful tax practices, and that is the reason UAE introduced the economic substance regulations. So just to see the landscape of the economic substance regulations in UAE, when was it introduced and what has been done so far, and what is the deadlines we are looking at currently. So there was first the cabinet resolution number 31, which was introduced effective 30th April 2019, which laid the foundation of the economic substance regulations in the UAE. Then further, 4th September 2019, there were further guidances issued, and then cabinet resolution number 58 was also issued, determining what are the regulatory authorities for ESR. Then 11th September was the implementation guidance by ministerial decision number 215. Then on January 2020, Ministry of Finance, which is the competent authority for the economic substance regulations, they issued frequently asked questions on their website, giving more insight onto these regulations. And then recently, like a couple of months back, on 15th April 2020, a relevant activity guide was published by the Ministry of Finance on their website, wherein they explained in detail the scope of these regulations, what kind of activities are being covered, what is the definition of those activities. So this is the landscape till now of the economic substance regulations. And now after 15th April, then the deadlines have been given for submitting the economic substance notification. And there have been different deadlines by different authorities, different free zone authorities and other regulatory authorities. But mostly it is 30th June. And there are some other deadlines also. So we will be covering those specific deadlines in detail in the next slides. So who is subject to ESR in UAE? So everybody has to comply with the law, or there are any specific businesses who have to comply with the law? So if we look at the definition of the law, it says that any person, any business who has a commercial license or any form of permit or even a certificate of incorporation has to assess whether they are falling within the ambit of the law or not. So basically every licensee, that means licensee means anyone who has a commercial license, permit or any other form of incorporation document in UAE, they need to assess whether they are carrying on a relevant activity and earning that income from that activity or not, and then meet the economic substance test. So we will be covering these definitions, what is relevant activity, what is economic substance test. So for now, just keep into mind that any business which has a commercial license or any permit needs to make at least an assessment as to whether they are falling under any of the relevant activity or not. So there is no materiality threshold. These questions have been asked by so many people that, like VAT, is there any revenue threshold? But there is no revenue threshold for ESR. Only exemption is for the companies in which UAE government is directly or indirectly holding 51% of the ownership. This is the only exemption in the ESR law. Otherwise, all the businesses need to make an assessment of the relevant activity. So what is a relevant activity? So there are 9 activities defined in the law which are covered as relevant activities. So any business which is falling into any of these 9 activities need to comply with the ESR law. So I will be going briefly into some of the businesses, and then some businesses we will be taking into detail towards the later part of the session. So basically starting with banking business. So banking business are relatively straightforward. So these are regulated entities which are licensed as commercial banks, usually by the central bank, or if they are in a free zone by the DIFC or the ADGM regulated free zones. So in this banking business, basically any UAE business which is engaged in exchanging foreign currency or remitting money or exchange houses, they are not covered under the banking business. Or any financial intermediaries, they will not be considered as banking business. So going into insurance business is a business where someone is accepting the risk for carrying out the insurance contract. So the most important element is to see whether the business is accepting the risk or not. So insurance business is regulated by the insurance authority, or if you are coming under the free zone, then your regulatory authority with the respective free zone. But it has been clarified in the relevant activity guide of the Ministry of Finance that insurance brokers, agents, or anyone who is providing insurance related services does not come into the definition of the insurance business if they are not assuming any part of the insured risk. So again, the important part is you have to be assuming the risk to be falling under the insurance business. But it doesn't mean that if you are out of the insurance business, you shouldn't check the other relevant activities. So if you're out of the insurance business, you should check whether you would fall into the other relevant activities or not. So going to the investment fund management business. So the main criteria here is those businesses which are making investment, divestment and risk related decisions on behalf of an investment fund. So again, the main point here is the business has to be making those risk related decisions themselves. So then they will fall into the investment fund management business. So if someone is providing only investment advisory kind of services, then they will not be considered as an investment fund management business. So moving on to a lease finance business. So lease finance business covers businesses which are offering credit or financing for any kind of consideration. So where there is no consideration involved, the businesses will not be considered as lease finance business. So it needs to be seen whether there is, entering of any finance leases kind of transactions, then, those would also get covered under a lease finance business. So next, this headquarter holding company, intellectual property and distribution service center we will be covering later and giving more details on these businesses. So I'll just skip those and then cover shipping business for now, and headquarter holding and IP and distribution service center I'll be taking in the later part in more detail. So shipping business basically covers the businesses who are operating ships in international traffic for either cargo or passengers. So in the guide, in the relevant activity guide, they've explained that the ships do not include like fishing vessels or small vessels where the tonnage is less than 10 tons, or leisure vessels like those cruise and private yachts. Those would not form part of the definition of the ships. And the important part here in shipping business is that you should be operating the ship to be qualified as a shipping business. So they gave an example that bareboat charter would not fall into the shipping business because the entity which is chartering the ship is not operating the ship. But again, like in this case, you may fall into lease finance business, and then you should look at the terms of the charter and see whether that would qualify as a lease finance business or not. So as I mentioned, headquarter holding IP and distribution service center, I'll be taking much more detail later. So how do you determine whether you are falling under the relevant activity or not? Do you just go by what is stated on your license, or what exactly do you need to do to determine that? So the ministry clearly clarified that a substance over form approach needs to be followed. What it means is that you need to see what is the exact nature of the transactions you carried on in the reporting period, and then decide whether you would be falling under the relevant activity or not. Don't just go by what is your license is saying. Go into the actual nature of the transactions. In fact, look at the accounts of the past year and then assess whether you would be falling under any of the relevant activity or not. So now I'll be passing over to Rishi. So he will be taking you through the notification deadlines and other formats of the notification form.
Thank you, Bhavna, for conducting this session. So I will be taking over from here. So I will be talking about the notification deadlines and the various forms which have been issued by the regulatory authorities. So starting with this screen, so you can see there are 4 columns here. The first one is basically the description of various regulatory authorities. Then we have the location, the form availability, and the deadlines. So with the description, I mean the various regulatory authority who are going to monitor the filing of the notification. Then the location is basically I've tried to divide among various emirates within UAE. So the first is the set of Dubai free zones, and then followed by Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, and in the next slide I have got another free zones there, as well as the mainland. So so how to access the form is the next question. Basically, most of the free zones have the forms listed on their portal. So for example, DMCC, DIFC, Dubai Development Authority, REC, ICC, the forms are available on their portal. So if you have to go and fill the form, the right place to go is go to the portal and fill it up. However, this is not the case with every free zone. Like in the case of Jebel Ali free zone, the form has to be emailed to Jebel Ali free zone at the email ID which is mentioned here. Same is the case with Dubai World Trade Center. So the form might have come to your email through these free zones, and then you have to reply back to them at the respective emails which has been designated for that purpose. Going to the next slide. So here we've got another set of free zones. So you can see ADGM, Kizad are in Abu Dhabi. Then we have Ajman free zone. Then we have 3 free zones in Hamria free zone, SAF zone, Sharjah Media City free zone. And then we have Minister of Economy, Quwain free zone. So you can see very clearly that the form availability is different in different free zones like ADGM, Kizad, Ajman, even Shams. The forms has to be emailed. However, in the other cases, it has to be filed on the portal. The only exception which I'd like to talk a little bit more on is about Ministry of Economy um, notification. So Ministry of Economy, the notification form is basically available on the website of Ministry of Economy. So it is not like in other cases where you got to by an email or it is available on a portal, because there is no portal as such for the mainland companies. So the best way to refer to this form is go to the Ministry of Economy website and access that form. So we have actually filled quite a few forms this morning. So it's very much there. It's functioning very well. So we'll be talking a little bit about the format of the Minister of Economy form later on during our session today. So just want to talk the last bit on this slide is the Kizad deadline is today, 20th June. So if some of the companies are falling are established in Kizad, must take action today to avoid any kind of penalties for late filing. So coming to this slide, this is one of the format which I have taken for one of the free zones, just to take you through how the form looks like and what are the various kinds of information which is required to be filled in. The form actually is not very lengthy or a very long form. It is a very concise form, but what is important in this case is to have a proper understanding of what is to be filled in the form. So I'll start from the top, like the first one, section A is licensee details. So licensee details, basically you have to put in the licensee name, the trade license number, and the financial year end. So basically this is the year end, which is the accounting year end followed by your company. So for example, some companies follow calendar year end, or there is a different financial year end. So calendar year end can be 31st of December, and the other year end can be 31st of March, and things like that. So you have to see what is your financial year and use that. So one thing should be kept in mind is the notification under the law is required for 2019. So there are certain examples which have been given. I just want to talk a little bit about that. Is the law requirement is that the accounting year should be starting on or after 1st of January 2019. So that's the law requirement. And then if you go to the next row, which is reporting period. So this is the reporting period for economic substance purposes, which needs to be mentioned. So in this case, as per the information which we have seen so far, is the accounting year has to be falling within the 2019 period. But there are certain cases wherein the companies have established within 2019 and their year end is actually going to fall later in 2020 and things like. So there are certain complex issues around it, so I'll not get into it right now, but we can discuss on one-to-one basis. But just want to give you some reference point to look at this. So for example, a company which was active full in 2019 can use 1st January 2019 to 31st of December 2019 as the date, or a company which has a financial year from April to March, so they can use 1st April 2019 to 31st of March 2020. So that's how you have to look at what is your accounting year. So accounting year can be found out from the year followed by the company, and could be mentioned in the memorandum of association or the group policy and things like that. So moving to the next column, next row, relevant activities. So now this says that did the licensee carry on relevant activity during the reportable period? So you have to say yes or no, as the case may be. The list of relevant activities, Bhavna has spoken about it earlier in the slides, and which is also mentioned here down. So if it applies in your case, you have to say yes or no in this point number 1. So coming to point 2A. So you can see there are 2A list down the various 9 kinds of activities which are part of ESR, and then 2B is basically did the licensee earn income from the relevant activity during the period. So in this one has to say in case there's a tick mark mentioned here in the 2A column, then you have to say whether you have earned income during this period or not. So one thing I like to mention in case of section 2A is that there is a concept of duplicate reporting, which means in certain activities, if there is an overlapping relevant activity, for example, if a banking business is also engaged in lease finance activities or service and distribution business, then there is no need to list all the activities here. So basically, the law says then if you mention tick on one particular aspect, so it is understood that other ancillary activities are covered. So this part you have to see the law and the guide, which has very clearly explained this point. So to be so in case there is an income earned in 2019, basically the reportable periods, as you can see, as we discussed earlier, that in reportable period, the start date to end date. So if you have earned any income during this period from any of these relevant activities, so you have to say yes or no here. And there's no need of mentioning any amounts as yet, because that will come in at the time of return, which is later 12 months after the end of the reporting period, but at least yes or no has to be mentioned here. Then the 2C section, this says that is the income earned from the relevant activities subject to tax outside the UAE. So what it means is that I'll just give you one example. Say income from a relevant activity could be subject to tax outside the UAE if the licensee has a taxable presence or permanent establishment in a foreign country that reports all or part of the income from the relevant activity in its tax return. So basically, if the part of the income is been already reported in other country, for example, if there is a branch office of a foreign company here, the branch has already been reported somewhere else. So that part you have to look at and see if it applies in your case and accordingly disclose it. So company needs to assess this and disclose it accordingly. So coming to the next slide, section D. Section D, the first column is quite straightforward. So if a company has an investment by government by 51% or more, has to say yes or no. So it's quite straightforward question. So you can say that. And then D2. So D2 says, was the licensee tax resident outside the UAE during the reportable period? A licensee is regarded tax residence in jurisdiction other than UAE if it subjects to tax from relevant activity by virtue of tax residence by domicile, etc. in that particular states. So when licensee notifies this, they will have to provide evidence to support tax residence like tax return, tax residency certificate, etc. So what it means is that if a licensee is tax resident outside UAE and they say yes here, then there will be additional requirements being asked by the ministry like tax returns submitted outside or the tax residency certificates, things like that. So one has to be careful before saying yes here, and to ensure that they have enough information at hand before saying yes and submitting the form. And the last part of the section is the designated person. So designated person is basically the person who is the manager on the license or the owner of the company. So accordingly, you can put the details. And then this is so you have to confirm whether you have given the information correct, and that's how you just submit the form. So now coming to the Ministry of Economy format. So the format is very much similar to what we have discussed in the earlier slides. However, there are few very small differences which I will talk through. Overall, the content is similar. So let's start with that. So first is, of course, to start with giving the email ID, then include the licensee name, the commercial trade license number, and then going to the next slide is basically financial year end. We discussed that earlier. And also here there's a requirement to give the registered office address. So you can find the registered office address on the trade license of the company. And then you have to disclose the legal form. So you can see which applies in your case. So if there's a professional license or a civil company, you may like to select other. So you can do that. Next slide is reportable period. We discussed already in the earlier slide, so that has to be mentioned here. Relevant activity. So did the licensee carry on a relevant activity as defined under Article 4 during the reportable period? So yes or no, you have to assess whether it applies in your case or not, and accordingly say yes or no. And coming to the next section, so basically here you have to indicate whether you have conducted the relevant activity or not. So one thing you might have noted here is that it only shows 5 activities instead of the 9 activities. Reason being, a Minister of Economy is responsible or regulatory authority for only these 5 activities. So rest of the other 4 activities, for example, banking business and lease finance business comes under the central bank. Then the insurance activities comes under the insurance authority, and the investment fund business comes under the security and commodity authority. So that's the reason. So for the other 4 activities, you have to go to those regulatory authorities to fill for mainland licenses. For these 5 categories, this is the format to be used. Now here, did the licensee earn income from the relevant activity during the reportable period? So we discussed that part. So you can say yes or no for these 5 activities. Then the next part is the income earned from the relevant activity subject to tax outside the UAE. So yes, no, or partially. So there's additional column here for partially. So accordingly, you have to say, and once you say yes to it, you have to be prepared that there could be additional information that needs to be provided to ministry. So like, for example, you have any tax returns been submitted outside, or any kind of residency certificate and things like that, tax residency certificates, things like that. So prepare for that before submitting this form. And see, and the last one, the intellectual property business is a high risk IP business. So we will cover this part later on the slides, but this is why it is showing here separately and not in the form which we have shown earlier, is because in that form, if we would have ticked intellectual property business, there is an automated form which comes out asking you to confirm whether it's a high risk or low risk. So Bhavna will cover more on this. So I'm more focused on discussing the format right now. So you have to say yes or no, the IP license holders. Then the additional information, 51% shares held by government entities. We discussed that part. So similar to that. Same question like was the licensee tax resident outside the UAE during the reportable period or not, and then do the submission. So that brings to the end of the form. So details of the manager or the owner should be mentioned here, and then you submit and done. So that's about the format, but the most important point is to assess whether you are conducting the relevant activity or not. That's the most important part. Moving to the next slide. So this is another interesting format which we have, basically a flow chart we have created. The purpose of this flow chart is basically to run you through how the whole process of ESR submission is going to work. So with the start, you can see it's very important. First of all, the company should have a trade license to operate. So that is the most important point. So there's a legal license through which the company is operating. And then once a company is operating, then the company has to file a notification. So we are saying here file notification latest by deadline. So here I would like to discuss a little bit. Most of the free zones are asking every company to file the notification. However, like Minister of Economy in the form, they have mentioned that only companies conducting relevant activity should file the forms. And still there is a little bit of ambiguity around it. What we are recommending to all our clients is that they have to anyways do a full review whether they are conducting a relevant activity or not. So once they have done that task of doing the review, it is always better to file the notification form and ensure that this legal compliance has been taken care of. So what we have noted is some companies may think the immediately they read the first page of 9 activities, the first reaction is that it does not apply. So say no, so does not apply to us and we don't have to fill the form. But what is more important in this case is there are situation where our activity is done, maybe 1 or 2 cases with related parties. So that might not occur straight away, whether it will fall under a distribution service center, for instance, or not. But once a person go and fill the form, then they realize what it means. So we are recommending everybody to go and fill the form instead of not doing it at all. So but as I said, the free zones are asking everybody to fill it, but Minister of Economy is a little bit more flexible in that regard by allowing not to file it. But what we expect in the coming days is that it will be made mandatory. So we recommend everybody to file the notification form and ensure this is done. So after the notification done is there are 3 question mark boxes. So now in nutshell, if I have to explain that, so there is a return that needs to be filed after 12 months from the end of the reportable period. So who needs to file this return? So this return has to be filed by only companies who are first of all conducting a relevant activity. First thing. Secondly, they are not owned 51% or more by government authority. And the third one is they must have earned income from that relevant activity during the reportable year. So if these conditions are met, then you have to file the return at 12 months after the end of the reportable period. If there is no income earned from relevant activity, or there is no relevant activity, or there was a relevant activity but no income earned during the reportable period, then the notification is enough and there is no more activity to be done after that. I hope this is clear. So I'll move to the next slide. So now this is a little bit about the implications of filing the notification. So what are the different kinds of issues which companies should need should keep in mind before filing a notification. So incorrect filing can lead to penalties. So Bhavna will cover a little bit more on the penalties later in the slides. So incorrect filing can lead to penalties, and penalties are quite high. And then not filing or late filing can lead to penalties as well. Stating a yes and not able to meet economic substance can lead to penalties and or closure. So what it means is that, for example, a company on the face of it felt that, okay, fine, uh, they are doing one relevant activity, and they said yes, and form is gone. And the next stage, when they're doing the assessment for whether they are meeting the requirements of the law or not, and they're not able to justify that, so that become a problem area. So what we recommend is, when you're filling the form, it's very, very critical that the company should assess whether they are able to meet the economic substance test in case they are doing any of the relevant activities. So selecting a wrong period can lead to also incorrect reporting. So it's very important that your reportable period should be correctly mentioned, because that is the requirement of the law. And the reporting period should be selected correctly, as I mentioned in the earlier point. So this is some of the implications of any kind of errors made at the notification level. So I'm trying to cover some of the frequently asked questions, which are discussed quite often. So so first one is the reporting period. So what should be the reporting period for ESR? So I've talked about it a little bit, that the reporting period has to be 2019, but now what is happening is different free zones are explaining a different reporting period in certain cases. When we say different reporting period, is that, like Ministry of Economy says, that if your return period, if your reportable period ends in from 1st January 2019 to 31st December 2019, within 31st December 2019, then you have to file a notification by 30th of June, and not in other cases. So if the notification period, the reportable period extend beyond 31st of December, so there will be a new deadline expected. So this is as per the latest information. However, in other free zones, they are allowing, they are asking everybody to submit the notification even if the notification period extend beyond 30th of June. So basically you are forecasting the relevant activities, which is very difficult for companies to do so. But what they are also saying is that file the notification, and the free zones will allow additional formats to do a re-notification if there are any changes. So this is something for the reporting period. The best way to get the right answer is to look at what is your regulatory authority saying. So it's very easy to just ask that question and get the answer for. So in case you have any confusion on any of these points, you can always talk to us, as we are studying it quite closely. Then the branch notification. So now this is another point for whether if a company has many branches within UAE, so do they file one notification for the head office and the branches, or separate notifications for the branches and the head office? So what we come to understand is that if a head office and the branches is within one regulatory authority, for example, the mainland license, say in Dubai, a company is formed under Ministry of Economy. So the mainland license and the branches uh, gets clubbed into one. So there is only one notification required to be mentioned. So even in case of a branch, you might have noted that the trade license number of the head office are always mentioned in the branch license. So there is a connection. So there is no need to file separate notification, but you have to assess all the branches and the head office together before giving this notification. However, this case can be a little different when the mainland license is the head office, for example, and there is a branch in the free zone. So the free zone has a different setup than a mainland. So there's a different regulatory body. So in that case, what we understand is there is a separate notification to be filed at both the places. So that has to be looked quite closely if you have a situation like this. Now, does it apply to all? I covered that point also earlier. It applies to all companies in UAE, but the law says that you have to file when you are conducting a relevant activity. So what it means is that every company has to assess whether or not they're doing a relevant activity. So in our opinion, it is always better to go and file the notification rather than just leaving it like that, because once you start filling the form, there are additional information or additional set of questions that comes to mind that can help you to assess better. So we recommend highly to file, and even some of the free zones are asking every company to file. So that's I think all companies should look at that. Where to file, the notification has to be filed to your regulatory bodies. So as I discussed, like different free zones or the mainland have their dedicated regulatory authorities. So you have to just go and communicate with your regulatory authority and file the notification accordingly. So the next question is licensed activity. Does it needs to be as per the licensed activities or not? So the simple answer to this question is law talks about substance over form approach. So if in substance there is a transaction done which might not be exactly what is your licensed activity, you are still covered in the ESR activities. So there, you have to be very careful about the transaction which you have done with related parties and things like that. So substance over form is how the law has been drafted at. So no relevant activity income. So what to do? So if there is a relevant activity company can do, but has not earned any income from that relevant activity during the reportable year, then you just have to file the notification, and there is no need for a return to be filed at a later date. So so these are most the major frequently asked questions which we try to cover. Back to Bhavna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rishi, for your inputs. So I'll be now taking details of some of the relevant activities which I mentioned earlier, like the headquarter business, the holding company business, IP business, and the distribution and service center business. So holding company business, so what the definition and the relevant activity guide mentions is that for a holding company business, your primary function should be holding the equity interest in other companies. So you should be holding shares, but do not carry out any other commercial activity, because if you are along with holding the shares, you are also carrying out any other commercial activity, then you are out of the holding company business definition. But then you will have to see whether you will be falling under any other relevant category or not. So only pure holding companies which are exclusively earning dividends or capital gains income would be considered as a holding company business. And in fact, for pure holding company business, they are subject to reduced test requirements, which is the economic substance test requirements, which I will be taking in the few coming slides as well. So the reduced test says is that you just have to submit certain documents and records to the regulatory authority, and also prove about the adequacy of the number of employees and premises for holding and managing the business. So what does a headquarter business means? Headquarter business means a business which is providing services to foreign group companies, so and taking on the responsibility for the success of the group. So those services could be in the nature of, you have a senior management sitting here in the UAE, and that senior management is providing services to the group companies outside the UAE. So here the important point here is the services should be provided to foreign group companies. So that is the main criteria. And then those senior management basically should be responsible for taking the risk of on behalf of the foreign group companies and giving them substantive advice in relation to those risks. So only in those cases you would qualify as a headquarter business. And like Rishi mentioned earlier, that you have to look at what the guidelines say about the duplicate reporting. So there is no duplicate reporting provided for a headquarter business if you are falling under other activities like lease, finance, banking, insurance, investment fund, or distribution and a service center business. So what is the intellectual property business? So intellectual property business is a business which is holding intellectual property assets, such as, the patents, trademarks, copyrights, etc. And you should be earning identifiable income from those assets in the form of royalties, license fees, capital gains from the sale of IPR. So important element here is that you should be earning identifiable income. So if you are just holding the assets just to protect the value of your goods or services, but not earning a separately identifiable income, then you would not fall into the definition of the intellectual property business. So some points to be considered is that, if, like, for example, IPR is just mere auxiliary to the main business, then you wouldn't fall under the IPR definition. So important to be seen is whether you are earning identifiable income from holding those IP assets. So again, there is a definition of a high risk IP licensee in case of a IP business, where it is mentioned that, if you are meeting any of these two conditions, you would be considered as a high risk IP licensee. So what it says is that if the business in the UAE has not created the IP asset, basically acquired it from a connected person. So what does a connected person means is, which is, directly or indirectly connected to you via a shareholding or control or common control. And then further, that IP asset has been licensed to the connected person and you are generating an income out of that. Or if the UAE licensee does not carry out any research or development or branding and marketing as part of the income which they are activity which they are conducting in UAE. So either of the two conditions, you would be considered as a high risk IP licensee. So if you fall under a high risk IP licensee, you will be presumed as not meeting the economic substance test, and you will have to demonstrate increased requirements and submit additional documents, as Rishi also highlighted earlier, that it was also mentioned in the form that you have to say yes or no whether you are a high risk IP licensee or not. So distribution and service center business. So this is a very broad definition. So again, here the important element which comes is the foreign connected person. So if you are purchasing and importing goods from foreign connected person and reselling those goods outside UAE, you would be categorized as a distribution center business. If you are providing services to foreign connected person in connection with the business outside UAE, you would be categorized as a service center business. So these services can be any kind of services, consulting, administrative, or even any other kind of services. One exception which has been mentioned in the relevant activity guide is that if you have done a one-off transaction, which is not in the ordinary course of the business, and you have recharged to the foreign company at cost or less, then you would be out of the scope. But important point is, it should be a one-off transaction, which is not done, which is not in the ordinary course of your business. Then you would be falling out of the scope of the distribution and service center business. So like we mentioned here, right, that the steps what involved is that you first submit a notification. So if you coming under yes, then after 12 months from the end of the financial year, you are supposed to submit a return. So in that, before the return, you need to assess whether you have met the economic substance test or not. What economic substance test means is that it's a 3-level test which the business will have to see. So if you have conducted any of the relevant activity and you have generated income from that relevant activity during the reportable period, then you need to meet these tests. So the tests are directed and managed test, SIGA test, and the adequacy test. So what does directed and managed test means is that the business should be directed and managed in UAE. So how do you prove that? You will have to show that the board meetings were conducted in the UAE, minutes were kept, written and signed by the attendees, the quorum of the meetings was met, quorum as listed in your constitution, illegal documents, or your MOA, what is the minimum quorum required, and that should be met. attendees physically present in the UAE. And in fact, Ministry of Finance released a one relaxation due to the COVID, that maybe some of the entities might not be able to meet this physical presence if they were not able to visit the UAE during the COVID period. So that bit of relaxation is there, and then they will see within that period that there will be a bit of relaxation from the Ministry of Finance. And also the directors should have the adequate knowledge and expertise. So you will have to give the qualifications of the directors and how they have the expertise to be taking the decisions for the company. And at least one meeting need to be held in the financial year. So if there is no board as such, if it is a single managed company or a branch which has a CEO or a general manager, then that person needs to meet that requirement. So the next test is the SIGA test. So SIGA is basically list of core income generating activities. So if you are falling under a particular activity, there is a guidance mentioned in the regulations which gives you, it's not an exhaustive list, but gives you an indicative list that these activities you should be performing within the UAE. So you have to justify that the business has conducted the SIGA in the UAE. That list of SIGAs, indicative list, is given in the regulation. So due to, that we cannot cover right now, and especially for these, the economic substance test and return related things, we will be carrying on future webinars, to go into more detail. Once the notification deadline is over, we will be having continuous webinars to provide more detail as to how to meet this test, what will need to be reported in the return, and how the business should prepare for it. So what does adequacy test says is that you have to show that you have adequate qualified full-time employees in the UAE, you have incurred adequate amount of expenditure in the UAE, and adequate physical assets in the UAE. So basically the whole purpose of these three tests is that you will be asked to substantiate that you have done economic activity in the UAE by meeting these three-level tests. And one provision which is there in the law is that you can also outsource your core income generating activity to either a third party or a related party, but based in UAE. That outsourced party should be based in UAE. Employees and physical assets can be outsourced, but directed and managed tests cannot be outsourced. So it means that you still have to show the adequate supervision over the outsourced company also, even if you have outsourced the core income generating activity to a third party or a related party. And that outsourced activity must be conducted in UAE, and even that outsourced provider should meet the adequate substance in the UAE. So what now, what are the penalties if someone doesn't comply with the law or someone doesn't submit the notification? What are the penalties? So like failure to provide information or accurate information is 10,000 dirhams to 50,000 dirhams penalty. So it is very important that you make an accurate assessment as to whether you are falling under the relevant activity definition or not. And if you don't provide the notification within the deadline, failure to provide notification, also there is penalty of 10,000 to 50,000. So make sure that you don't miss the deadline of as given by the different regulatory authorities. And if you have submitted the notification but you are not able to meet with the economic substance test, then again a penalty of first year penalty is 10,000 to 50,000 dirhams, and the information will be exchanged with the foreign authority of your parent company, of your ultimate parent company, and your ultimate beneficial owner. And second year also, if you don't meet the economic substance test, the penalty would be in the range of 50,000 to 300,000. Information exchange will still be there. And the most risky part is that it can even result in the suspension or non-renewal of your license. So as you can see that it is very critical that the compliance is done properly for ESR. So now we have covered all the agenda which was set in for the today's webinar. So we will be taking the questions. So we have received quite a few questions through our Q&A portal. So going the first question, someone has asked a question that a subsidiary registered in DMCC in October 2019 and having year end of 31st December 2020, when will it have to file this return? So this is actually a very valid question, and there has been some kind of ambiguity or differences between the stands taken by the different regulatory authorities. So we would suggest that you should get it in writing from the DMCC, but based on our experience, what DMCC is saying that as long as you are registered before or on 31st December 2019, you have to submit a notification, but you have to select the correct reporting period, which in this question will be from 1st October 2019 to 31st December 2020. And DMCC has said that currently you are expected only to notify us for the 2019 period. They are not expecting you to preempt the future and then say what you will do in the future. So still notification needs to be done, but you will be only expected to cover 2019, and DMCC will be sending further notifications to the people who have still period going on and their financial year is not ended. So again, they will be asked after 31st December 2020 to check whether their position have changed from the previous notification. But in this case, return will be due only 12 months after the year end, which will be 31st December 2021. I hope this answered the question. So next question is, since you mentioned that exchange houses are not covered under banking business, do they still have to file a ESR notification stating that we do not carry out the relevant activity? So yes, exchange houses are not covered under banking business, but please make sure that you cover the other relevant activities also to check whether you would come under other relevant activities criteria or not. And I'm assuming that it is a mainland business. So our recommendation is that currently Ministry of Economy form is giving an option to even submit a no notification. So our recommendation is, if the option has been given, you should go ahead and file a no notification if you are not carrying any other relevant activity. What about Abu Dhabi based companies? Again, Abu Dhabi based companies, you have to see whether you are free zone or not. If you are mainland, then also the Ministry of Economy is the regulatory authority if you are carrying those 5 activities which we mentioned. Okay, then our company deals with organic and chemical fertilizers trading and general trading. Do we fall under economic substance? It is a DMCC form. So you have to check whether you are falling under distribution center, because you are saying you are a trading business. So if you are buying from foreign connected person and then reselling, you have to check whether you would be falling under the distribution service center and then do the notification accordingly. Our company is registered in Creative City Free Zone, and business as per the license is management consultancy, which is not there in the list of business mentioned, but it also owns shareholding in other companies and gets dividend too. Will it fall under holding company business and required to file the form? So in this case, management consultancy is not mentioned as the business, but there is a activity called district service center business. So you have to see whether you are providing any services to foreign connected persons. And you mentioned that you are holding shares. So are you holding shares and also earning income from the management consultancy activity? Then you would not come under the holding activity, because like I mentioned, only pure holding companies, they should not be having any other commercial activity. So in this case, you should check your relevant activity for the service center business and not for the holding company. If you have, when filling the form, which reporting period to be considered for year 2019 or current year 2020? So yes, for you have to check the financial year starting on or from 1st January 2019. So if it is carried forward to 2020, then it will be from 2019 to 2020 period. If it is from Jan to December, then it will be Jan to December, but you have to see 2019 starting period.
Right. So we are now at 4 o'clock exactly. So I think we have run out of time. We'll see if we can answer one or two more questions and we can end. So if somebody has to leave, thank you very much for joining. And I'll request Bhavna to take one or two questions and end it here. And rest of the questions, please feel free to write to us or call us. We'll be happy to help you out in filling this form, this notification form. Thank you. Bhavna, carry on.
And if we will be sending the replies, because a lot of questions we have received. So due to paucity of time, we will answer them on a one-to-one basis. I'll just take one more question. Does central bank have notification form available on their website? As per our knowledge, I mean, it is changing every day. You know, all the updates are changing every day. So as per our knowledge, up till now, they have not issued the notification form on their website, but please keep checking, because the updates are happening almost every day. Okay, so that's it from our side, and we will make sure that we will answer all the questions, and we will send the replies to the person who has asked the question if not covered till now. Thank you so much to all the attendees, and we will be conducting these kind of sessions in the future as well. And after the notification, in fact, we will be going more into details about economic substance test and the return and what needs to be done to prepare for the return. Thank you again, everyone. Thanks a lot.